unwittingly offered, may allow your son to live again." The chaotic graves at their feet cracked. A wisp of dust rose and fell into the cauldron. The diamond-like surface shattered with hissing sparks, turning the liquid vivid blue. Wormtail sobbed, drawing a shining silver dagger from his oversized robe. Trembling with terror, he cried, "Servant, blood, willingly offered, may let your master be reborn." He thrust his severed hand into the cauldron. The potion flared bright scarlet. Dragging his bleeding arm, Wormtail staggered before Harry, moaning in pain. "Enemy, blood, forcibly given, may bring your foe back to life." The dagger that had just severed his wrist pierced Harry's inner arm. Wormtail grabbed a potion vial, letting a drop of blood fall into the cauldron. Derek felt every fiber of his body quivering uncontrollably. Just hearing this dark magic, he knew Voldemort would soon abandon this feeble form and regain immense power. Only he and Harry refused to witness it, yet they were powerless to intervene. Though the odds were slim, Derek forced himself into his memory, searching for a way Harry had escaped in the original tale. He refused to become the first spirit claimed by Voldemort's restored power. He wanted to live and see those he loved, who loved him in return. Wormtail shook the glass vial, pouring the blood into the cauldron. The liquid instantly turned a brilliant white. Exhausted, he collapsed beside the cauldron, clutching his severed, bleeding arm, gasping and sobbing. Suddenly, the sparks over the cauldron died out. A white steam rose from within, shrouding everything nearby. Amid the pale mist, a black figure slowly emerged from the cauldron, a tall, thin man, skeletal in appearance. "Dress me." The cold, sharp voice came from within the steam. Wormtail whimpered and moaned, clutching his mangled arm, hastily scooping up the black robe that had been lying on the ground. Trembling, he slipped it over his master's head with one hand. The tall, gaunt man stepped out of the cauldron. His skin was as pale as a skeleton's, his eyes blood red, his nose flat like a serpent's with narrow slits for nostrils. Voldemort had returned. At that instant, Derek felt a sudden chill, as if a tangible gaze pierced through marble tombstones and struck his back. He could almost sense the emotions it carried: expectation, exhilaration, malice, hatred, fear, submission. By a massive tree in the Forbidden Forest, Dumbledore paced around a mound of dirt and some branches. Beneath the crescent-shaped glasses, his blue eyes were serious and contemplative. Fawkes perched on his shoulder, scanning left and right, while Dumbledore's wand traced slow arcs in the air. Dirt and branches rose, forming a few crude humanoid figures that shot backward at speed. "The origin of magic," Dumbledore murmured, seizing Fawkes's golden tail. With a flash of fire, they vanished. By the tunnel Wormtail had dug, Dumbledore appeared, stepping along the firelight. He lowered his head, taking in the scene below. Wand raised high, the ground trembled, nearby trees uprooted, mounds of soil lifted as if by an invisible giant hand, scattering to the side. Within seconds, the tunnel was revealed. A tabby cat leapt over a fallen tree and landed before Dumbledore. In the next moment, it transformed into a serious-looking woman, panting as she spoke. "Albus, what's happening?" "Harry and Derek have been captured by Alastor," Dumbledore replied tersely. McGonagall's eyes widened in shock. "Moody, how is this possible?" Dumbledore raised a hand to halt her. "They disappeared here. There's magical disturbance." He swept his wand through the air as if sensing something. Portkey, apparition, or he swung his wand forcefully. In the next moment, space seemed to crease, emitting a low hum. Surrounding soil, bushes and trees shimmered, blurring, then returned to their original form. How is that possible?" McGonagall asked, tense. "Apparition. They apparated," Dumbledore said. "Where have they been taken?" McGonagall's lips trembled. "How can we find them?" "Minerva, go to the Ministry immediately. Have the duty staff take you to the Department of Magical Accidents and Misuse. Fawkes will accompany you. Your task is to retrieve every record of Harry's movements within the past hour," Dumbledore said calmly. "I know the records room is normally closed to underage students outside of term time, but you must move quickly. Use force if necessary. The consequences will be mine to bear." Minerva nodded. The Phoenix perched on her shoulder with a soft puff, and they vanished. About 3 minutes later, Snape, Sprout, and Flitwick arrived, gasping for breath. Dumbledore was still sweeping his wand in repeated arcs, sending ripples through space. "What do we do now?" Snape asked immediately. Dumbledore sighed, lowering his wand. Wait. All we can do is wait, he said gravely. Hope Minerva is fast enough. Hope Harry and Derek are lucky enough. Hope the worst hasn't happened yet. Chapter 94. Death Eaters. Voldemort stood rigid before the cauldron, inspecting his own body. His hands were like pale spiders, long, thin fingers gliding over his chest, arms and face. His red eyes glimmered in the darkness, pupils slit like a cat's. He raised his hands, flexing his fingers in ecstatic delight, then reached into a deep pocket and drew out a wand. He stroked it gently before lifting it, pointing at Wormtail, and yanking him from the ground, tossing him beside the tombstones where Derek and Harry were bound. Wormtail collapsed there, sobbing uncontrollably. Voldemort's crimson eyes first scanned Harry and Derek, then he let out a sharp, cruel hiss of laughter. Master, great master, Wormtail choked. You promised. Extend your arm, Voldemort said lazily. Oh, thank you, master. Wormtail stretched out his bloodied, severed arm, but Voldemort sneered. Not this one, Wormtail. Master, I beg you, I beg you. Voldemort leaned down and grabbed Wormtail's left arm, rolling up the sleeve past his elbow. There, on the skin, was the dark mark, a skull from whose mouth snakes slithered. Voldemort examined it carefully, ignoring Wormtail's uncontrollable sobs. It has returned, he whispered, and they will all notice it. Now we shall see, we shall know. He pressed his long, pale fingers against Wormtail's arm. A long, wailing scream escaped Wormtail. Voldemort lifted his fingers from the mark, a cruel, triumphant smile twisting across his face. He straightened, lifted his head, and scanned the dark cemetery. After feeling it, how many would dare return? He murmured, red eyes fixed on the stars above. And how many would foolishly refuse to come? Moody. With a thud, someone knelt, crawling to Voldemort, pressing their lips to the hem of his robe. Master, I have completed your task. I've brought 2 boys to restore your power. Master, I have not forgotten you for a single moment. Barty, my most loyal servant, you have brought me what is most necessary for my resurrection, Voldemort said softly. You shall receive a reward beyond your imagining. I am willing to give everything for you, Master, Barty said fervently. Very well, Voldemort said with satisfaction. Return to your place, Barty. The man named Barty rose and silently stepped aside. Voldemort began pacing before Derek and Harry, eyes scanning them, his serpentine face twisting into a cruel smile. Harry Potter, you stand upon the bones of my father, he hissed softly. He was a muggle, but my mother was a witch from a nearby village who loved him. When she revealed her identity, he abandoned her. My mother died giving birth to me, and I grew up in a muggle orphanage. Yet I swore to find him, to take revenge on the one who gave me the same name as him, Tom Riddle. And in the end, I did. I killed him. Barty, you did as well, didn't you? Yes, master, I killed Bartemius Crouch, Barty said obediently. A stifled cry escaped Harry, while Derek felt his insides convulse. He understood everything. The International Cooperation Department head, Bartemius Crouch, had named his son after himself. The young Barty became a Death Eater, using Polyjuice Potion to impersonate Moody and infiltrate Hogwarts, while also controlling his father, leveraging his power to free Wormtail from Azkaban. Ah, you've noticed the connections between us, Derek Grayton? Voldemort's red eyes turned toward him. Family shapes our lives. Harry Potter's muggle-born mother died protecting him. My father's ashes aided my resurrection, and your grandfather, Ethan, brought you to Hogwarts. You may not know, but he was once part of my true family. Now my family shall return. The air suddenly erupted with soft popping sounds. Shadows moved. Hooded, masked figures knelt carefully, one by one, before Voldemort, pressing their lips to his robe's hem like young Barty had. Then they stepped aside, forming a circle around the tombstones, Voldemort, Derek, Harry, and sobbing Wormtail. Spaces remained, as if awaiting more to join, but Voldemort seemed unwilling to wait. Welcome, Death Eaters, Voldemort said calmly. 13 years since our last gathering, yet you respond to my call as if it were yesterday, proving we remain united beneath the dark mark. Yes? He lifted his grotesque face, flaring his slit nostrils, sniffing the air. I smell guilt, he said. There's a stench of guilt here. I see you, healthy, magical power intact, rushing here so swiftly. But why? Why have these witches and wizards failed to help their master, to honor their oath of eternal loyalty? They must have thought I was finished, doomed, but why did they not trust my return? Did they not know I long ago took measures to prevent death? Did they not witness countless times that my power is boundless? Perhaps they believe in a force stronger than Voldemort. Perhaps they have sworn allegiance to one called Albus Dumbledore. Is that it? One figure suddenly lunged to the ground, prostrating before Voldemort, trembling from head to toe. "Master," he screamed, "I beg your forgiveness. Forgive us." Voldemort sneered, raising his wand. Excruciating agony. The kneeling Death Eater writhed in torment, screams echoing through the cemetery. "You beg my mercy, Avery?" Voldemort murmured, wand raised. "I will not forgive you. You will repay every debt accrued over the past 13 years before I grant mercy. But there is one I shall not forgive yet. We must reestablish the rules, ensuring the traitor faces the punishment he deserves." He waved his wand casually, and Karkaroff, who had been standing frozen to the side, suddenly shuddered, snapping out of the Cruciatus curse. Confused, he glanced around, his gaze lingering briefly on Derek and Harry, before landing on Voldemort at the center of the circle. His eyes went wide, and he began trembling uncontrollably. "Master," he stammered, collapsing to his knees. "Good evening, Karkaroff," Voldemort purred, tracing the tip of his wand. "I hear you've been doing quite well these past years." Master, please forgive me. I am now the headmaster of Durmstrang. There are many promising young minds. I will serve you with utmost loyalty." "Too late," Voldemort said quietly, pronouncing judgment. "The moment you betrayed our friends to save yourself, this night was sealed. Avada Kedavra." A flash of green light briefly illuminated the graveyard. Though the air was still, a faint rustle seemed to pass through the circle, as if everyone shivered simultaneously. Derek forced himself to remain silent. At this moment, his senses seemed magnified, acutely aware of the ominous killing intent at the tip of Voldemort's wand. Yet he could not focus, could not access memories, nor even comprehend the words Voldemort had just spoken. His entire body and mind was frozen, passively receiving everything. "Finally, it's your turn, Wormtail," Voldemort said, looking down at the sobbing, cradling little Peter. "I granted you freedom because you were the easiest Death Eater to escape Azkaban. Yet I've noticed you've seemed unhappy lately. Does serving your master displease you, Wormtail?" "No, master," Wormtail whimpered. "Please, master, I beg you. You serve me not out of loyalty, but fear of your old companions, fear of returning to Azkaban. You deserve this suffering, Wormtail. You know it, don't you?" "Yes, master, please, I beg you. You promised." "But you helped me regain my body," Voldemort said coldly, watching Wormtail sob on the ground. "Though you are a despicable traitor, you helped me. Voldemort does not mistreat those who aid him." Voldemort raised his wand and traced it through the air. A silver beam of light appeared, initially shapeless, then twisting into the form of a shining human hand. It flew down and attached itself to Wormtail's severed wrist. Wormtail's crying ceased. His breaths were heavy and harsh. He looked up in disbelief at the silver hand. Tentatively he flexed the shining fingers, then shakily picked up a branch from the ground, crushing it into powder. "My master," he said, crawling forward on his knees to kiss Voldemort's robe. "Master, you are truly great. Thank you, thank you." "I hope your loyalty will never waver again, Wormtail," Voldemort said. "It won't, my master. Never, my master." Wormtail rose and joined the circle, tears still glistening on his face as he repeatedly examined the magically restored hand. Voldemort then moved toward the person to Wormtail's right. "Lucius, my cunning friend, I hear you have not abandoned your past deeds, and still take pleasure in leading the persecution of Muggles. Yet you would rather amuse yourself at the Quidditch World Cup than dedicate your energy to locating and assisting your master. Why is that?" Voldemort asked quietly. "Master, I have always been vigilant," Lucius Malfoy's voice came from beneath his hood. "At the slightest sign from you, at any news of your whereabouts, I will come to your side immediately. Nothing can stop me. Yet last summer, when a loyal Death Eater cast my mark into the sky, you fled," Voldemort said lazily. "Yes, I know, Lucius, you disappointed me. I hope you will serve me with greater loyalty in the future." "Of course, master, of course. Thank you for your magnanimity. Thank you." Voldemort stepped forward, pausing in the gap between Malfoy and the person next to him, space enough for two. "The Lestranges should be standing here," Voldemort said softly, "but they were buried alive in Azkaban. They are loyal, preferring Azkaban to betrayal. Once it falls, they will receive rewards beyond imagining. For now, Bartemius, you will occupy this spot." A ripple ran through the circle. The Death Eaters glanced around and saw Bartemius crouch at the far end, murmuring among themselves, "Friends, perhaps you do not realize how much Bartemius has aided me. Because of him, these two young ones are here tonight, and I was able to return," Voldemort said. "Bartemius, this is your deserved honor. I hope you continue your loyalty, as those who should be here would have." Crouch knelt again, kissing Voldemort's robe, then crawled to Malfoy's side, a look of pride and excitement on his face. "Patience, patience," Voldemort said, noticing everyone staring at Derek and Harry. "One step at a time." He proceeded down the line, speaking briefly, issuing warnings, or administering punishment. No one else was executed. Those present were at least somewhat loyal, unlike Karkaroff, who had fully betrayed. "All right, reminiscing is over," Voldemort said, returning to the circle's center 5 minutes later. "I am pleased our minds remain aligned, essential for our future work. Now, the moment you have long awaited, let me introduce our guests, Harry Potter and Derek Greengrass, attending my rebirth soiree. We shall call them my special invitees." A hush fell. Then Lucius Malfoy stepped forward. "Master, we long to know. We beg you to tell us, how did you accomplish such a miracle, returning to us?" Voldemort raised a pale finger. Malfoy fell silent, glancing resentfully at Crouch. "Rather than recounting tales to you, I prefer to introduce our guests, Lucius," Voldemort said. "You all know Harry Potter, but this one beside him, Derek Greengrass, does anyone know him?" A small stir went through the masked figures, exchanging furtive glances. "Ah, compared to the famous Harry Potter, Derek Greengrass is indeed ordinary. Yet in my mind he is just as important. So tonight I invited him as well." Voldemort approached Derek, lifting his wand slightly, his voice unusually gentle. "I am eager to converse with you, Derek. But first, I must see what you know, Legilimens, author's note. Well, a little spoiler in advance. What you're most worried about isn't going to happen. Chapter 95. The Reason. During the first Defense Against the Dark Arts lesson at Hogwarts, Remus Lupin had guided Derek through learning about Boggarts. Back then, the Boggart before Derek had transformed directly into a figure from his previous life, clearly revealing that what he feared most was death. Yet tonight, a year and a half later, Derek realized with absolute clarity that, compared to death, the exposure of memories from his past life terrified him far more. Lupin had been right. Derek only had a basic grasp of mindlock and legilimency. Against Voldemort's intrusion now, the defensive exercises Lupin had led a year ago were mere child's play. Voldemort effortlessly shattered a year's worth of Derek's mental defenses, tearing into his thoughts and consciousness, heading straight for his memories. "No, this can't. I have to. Stop." Derek poured all his willpower into driving the malicious intrusion out, but his resistance was too weak and it faltered. Voldemort easily began flipping through the surface memories of this life. Now, at his whim, he could alter Derek's mind, inflict endless torment, or plunge him into illusions from which there would be no escape. "Mind lock, huh?" Voldemort's rasp echoed inside Derek's head. "You're still far beneath Ethan's level." Powerless, Derek watched as Voldemort quickly scanned 15 years of memories. A soft murmur escaped Voldemort as his consciousness circled within Derek's mind, then dove once more, deeper this time, into the stable dreamscape constructed within his subconscious. An invisible roar reverberated at Derek's ears, dragging his awareness down. Within the dream, his body manifested anew, unbound, and he stood face to face with Voldemort on the rolling hills of a barren plain. "Ah! I make mistakes too," Voldemort murmured darkly. "You aren't as hopeless as you appear, Derek Grido. Now, why have you built such a dream world? For mindlock practice, or to conceal a memory you don't want others to see? Soon we shall know." "Get out!" Derek strained, his voice trembling under the effort. "Get out of my mind." Voldemort twisted his mouth into a menacing smile, chanting softly. His form faded, coalescing into a black mist that spread outward. The invisible battle resumed. Seconds or perhaps a minute passed, and Derek's defenses crumbled once more. The black mist expanded relentlessly, poised to strike the stone pit containing his past life memories. About to. The most desperate outcome loomed. Tonight's failure could plunge the entire British magical world into eternal darkness. He would rather die. Then Derek felt a sudden jolt throughout his body, as if he could see everything happening in his mind. In that instant, the dream world trembled imperceptibly, and to his disbelief, the black mist slid past the stone pit without a trace, as if it hadn't noticed anything at all. How was this possible? Luck! Clack, clack, clack! Accompanied by the rapid tap of heels, Minerva McGonagall strode briskly down a corridor in the Ministry of Magic, Fawkes the Phoenix flying low above her. "Please, Professor McGonagall, please," a curly-haired wizard panted as he ran behind her. "I beg you, I can't allow you to do this." "And what do you intend to do, Wilson?" McGonagall's voice echoed down the empty corridor. "Draw your wand and try to restrain me, according to duty regulations?" "No, I would never dare touch you, Professor," the Ministry duty officer Wilson said, panic in his voice. "Just give me 10 minutes, please. I need the head's authorization." "Then go ahead and act against me, Wilson," McGonagall said calmly without turning. "But don't use transfiguration. Your NET transfiguration grade is only an A, and I'm still disappointed." Wilson's face turned deep purple. "Think about the consequences, Professor McGonagall," he pleaded. Even as Hogwarts deputy headmistress, forcibly entering the ministry's restricted area would be considered trespassing. "I'm doing this for you. I'm doing this for 2 Hogwarts students. Their lives are in danger." McGonagall abruptly halted, her wand jabbing directly into the chest of the wizard, who hadn't stopped in time. "Professor Dumbledore and I are prepared to take full responsibility for tonight's actions. Now, Wilson, I'm giving you 2 options." Her nostrils flared slightly. 1, I knock you out, and later you can place all the blame on me. 2, quietly follow behind me, and later place all the blame on me. You have 3 seconds to choose. 3, 2. "I'll follow behind you, Professor McGonagall," Wilson said immediately. "Good. And remember to stay quiet." McGonagall turned and briskly continued forward. 3 minutes later, the pair and the bird arrived at a wooden door. "Is this it?" McGonagall asked. "Yes, the Trace Records office. But we'll need an unlocking spell," Wilson replied despondently. "Your hint is much appreciated, Wilson." McGonagall raised her wand. "Step back." A flash of light and the wooden door shattered into fragments. As the dazzling light faded, Derek's dizziness ebbed, only to return with a dull ache in his waist. He coughed painfully, and before he could even hope for a reprieve, his eyes met Voldemort's glowing crimson gaze. "You didn't know?" Voldemort's snake-like eyes narrowed further, the red within blazing brighter. "You truly knew nothing beyond the inheritance, Derek Greengrass? That cowardly, death-fearing weakling, the despicable traitor, sent his only descendant to Hogwarts. What did he intend, to kill me? Impossible! Excruciating! Excruciating!" Derek had never endured such torment. His bones felt as if they were on fire, his skull ready to explode. The pain consumed everything. He could neither think nor act, only struggle and endure. Then the torment abruptly stopped. He slumped, dangling from the ropes binding him to the gravestone, his waist wound splitting open, bleeding anew onto his robes. "Painful, isn't it, Greengrass?" Voldemort said, his fury vented but frustrated. "Yet nothing compares to your confusion. What could have happened to bring me such suffering?" He sneered. "But you deserve it, Derek Greengrass. 10,000 excruciating curses could never atone for the Greengrass family's sins." Perhaps realizing that in this world there are things more terrifying than death, and that they had not yet come to pass, Derek's fear lessened. He lifted his head, shivering as he drew in a deep, icy breath, and met the glowing red eyes calmly. "Is that so?" "Then tell me," he said. Voldemort's eyes widened slightly at Derek's composure. Yes, the cunning that runs in the Greengrass line," Voldemort said with disdain, turning to pace among his servants. "Friends, I'm sure you're curious. Who is Derek Greengrass, and why does he stand alongside Harry Potter in my presence? It all ties back to his grandfather, Ethan. I must regretfully admit Ethan Greengrass was once part of our household." All eyes in the circle fixed on the 2 of them. The serpent coiled and twisted around Harry. In the silence, a Death Eater named Avery drew a sharp, audible breath. "You remember this name, Avery, don't you?" Voldemort asked lazily. "Yes, master, but I thought he was long dead," Avery replied cautiously. "Deceivers always have many tricks," Voldemort said. "I was young then, my power not yet sufficient, and I too was fooled. I once thought I had personally killed him. Yet Ethan Greengrass, that sly trickster, toyed with death and escaped England. Speaking of youth, It makes me nostalgic. We all had our young days making friends. Lestrange, Avery, Knott, Rosier, Mulciber, and Greengrass. Yes, though he was Muggle-born, the Sorting Hat placed him in Slytherin, and I welcomed him as a companion. Indeed, he had some talent, contributing to our magic and our cause. But Voldemort's tone grew icy. Muggle-borns are Muggle-borns. The corrupt blood runs in them. Ethan Greengrass betrayed my work, stole my achievements. You don't need reminding of a traitor's fate, friends, do you? All eyes in the circle turned toward Karkaroff on the ground. The Death Eaters shivered collectively. I knew nothing of you, Derek. I didn't even have a body then, Voldemort said. But last year, a foolish witch, Bertha Jorkins, wandered into the forest where I hid. Fate smiled upon me. She had been cursed at the ministry and stumbled upon me. Ah, Ethan again, a key figure impossible to ignore. Your grandfather excelled at infiltrating minds. Using some of his tricks, I controlled Jorkins, extracting countless pieces of intelligence from her. Wormtail's situation, Bartemius's whereabouts, the Triwizard Tournament, and a rare American transfer student, Derek Greengrass. The transfer forms must be carefully filled, Derek. Bertha clearly saw the family connection and the rumors from America. The transfer was about your grandfather's inheritance. Luck began siding with Voldemort, did it not? Derek Greengrass, Ethan Greengrass, inheritance. I will have a chance to correct past mistakes and reclaim what was stolen by liars and thieves. Oh, and you too, Bertha. He waved his wand, and the hooded figure standing frozen fell to the floor, revealing a bewildered, plump woman. Voldemort never neglects those who aid him, but alas, Bertha's mind can never be restored. Voldemort's voice brimmed with regret. The Death Eaters need no weaklings. Avada Kedavra! A flash of green light, and Bertha Jorkins fell straight to the ground, dead. All right, reminiscing is over. Voldemort approached Derek, his voice gentle. I could have mercifully ended your life, but in honor of Ethan Greengrass, I am giving you a chance to serve me in place of your grandfather. Traitors and fools have met their end before you, Derek. What will your choice be? Chapter 96, Rescue. In the heavy silence, a curious expression crossed Derek's face. Are you trying to recruit me? Don't play games before Lord Voldemort, Greedo, Voldemort said coldly. Tonight you have no. If you want to recruit someone, tying them up isn't exactly friendly, is it? Derek interrupted. Could you help me with these ropes? Voldemort's serpentine face betrayed no emotion. He twitched a finger, and one by one the cords binding Derek snapped. Derek collapsed onto the overgrown cemetery floor with a sharp groan. Cough, thanks. Now could I have my wand back? Derek asked, clutching his wound. Do not test my patience, Greedo, Voldemort said flatly. But I'm bleeding, Derek shrugged. Or would you deign to heal a little nobody like me? Voldemort's red eyes scrutinized him. The Death Eaters shifted slightly backward, instinctively wary of their master's sudden fury. Crouch, return his wand, Voldemort ordered. But Greedo, if your answer does not satisfy me, he left the threat hanging, yet the terror in it was unmistakable. Bartemius Crouch stepped forward, lifted his cloak, and drew Derek's wand from his belt. He tossed it to Derek's feet and silently returned to the line. Thank you, Derek said with a sigh, picking up the wand and caressing it gently. The ebony wand warmed in his hand, but this time it did not tremble or scorch. It simply radiated its familiar heat, flowing from his fingertips into his heart, calming the last remnants of fear and trembling. Heal as before, Derek whispered the incantation. The effect was immediate. The wound at his waist had vanished, restored fully by the change in his mindset. Thanks for your generosity, Derek said, rising to his feet with support from a tombstone. He faced Voldemort squarely. May I continue with a personal statement? The serpent slithered from beside Harry to stand before Derek, head high, fangs bared, tongue flicking. Bartemius Crouch stepped forward again, face twisted with anger. Filthy half-blood, answer your master. Voldemort raised a pale hand. Crouch fell silent, glaring at Derek with pure venom. Continue, Voldemort commanded. Thank you, Derek said with a slight smile. Where to begin? Perhaps with death, since I just witnessed the full resurrection ritual. I've always feared death. At one point, I thought it was the scariest thing. But tonight, everything changed. I realized there is something far more terrifying than death in this world. Do you know what it is, Voldemort? The Death Eaters stirred slightly. Surprised, Derek dared speak his name aloud. Derek pressed on without waiting for a reply. You wouldn't know. You crave life, unicorn blood, the philosopher's stone, dark magic. You will do anything to survive. So death must be what you fear most. Guess Voldemort, if a boggart appeared before you now, what would it become? Voldemort's eyes narrowed, glowing red, fingers curling around his wand. Very well, you refuse to answer. We'll skip that question, Derek said calmly. Now about me. When you invaded my mind just now, I confronted my deepest fear, losing control over my own mind. My thoughts, my consciousness, my spirit, my memories, from past to future, they are part of me, yet they must remain under my control. I am the absolute master of myself. Every person deserves that independent will. Right now, no desire for survival, no threat of death can change that. You and your followers, afraid of death, craving power, indulging cruelty, can't even control yourselves. What right do you have to call yourselves human? You're nothing but beasts of desire. Beasts attempt to dominate me. Ridiculous. Voldemort's smile was icy as he raised his wand, Derek feeling the magic coalesce. So your answer is refusal, Greedo? Voldemort asked softly. Of course, Derek replied firmly, kneel before you out of fear of death. I now fear something far greater, and to protect it, death is meaningless. Very well, Voldemort said. Everyone sensed the deadly subtlety behind his smooth words. If that is your choice, Greedo, Protego! Derek shouted. The instant the spell left his lips, Voldemort's silent curse struck with immense power. Derek's shield split like butter under a knife. He staggered, colliding with the circle of Death Eaters, who laughed cruelly as they pushed him back toward Voldemort. Your Protego is your courage, Greedo, Voldemort mocked. You retrieved your wand to duel me with a child's spell? Let's see who is more laughable. Before Derek could defend or even move, the Cruciatus curse hit. Pain consumed everything, as if white-hot knives pierced every inch of his skin. He bit down hard, refusing to cry out, clutching his wand with all his strength. Derek curled up on the ground, trembling uncontrollably as Voldemort loomed over him. Childish defiance, Voldemort whispered. Merciful Voldemort grants you one final chance, Derek Greengrass. What is your answer? Ha, 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 cough, ha! In the silence, Derek erupted into laughter for no apparent reason. The pain from the Cruciatus curse still racked him, but he forced the laughter out. It twisted into a sharp, unnatural sound, utterly bizarre. I understand now. I see, he murmured. You probably can't bring yourself to kill me, can you? Voldemort paused for a brief moment. Wilson and McGonagall hurried through the narrow corridors. Fawkes perched on her shoulder. The Trace Records office was lined with towering shelves, and between them, countless parchments drifted in precise directions, finally settling into cubbies marked with faded little labels. Can you roughly identify where Harry Potter's records are? McGonagall asked. I should be able to. Wilson strained to read the labels amid the dim light and swirling parchment. We need to go to Section P. This way, Professor. Thank you, Wilson, McGonagall said. Tomorrow, Dumbledore and I will meet with Minister Fudge. You won't face any trouble. Thank you, Professor McGonagall, Wilson said with a wry smile. Honestly, under normal circumstances, I would be more than willing to assist you and Professor Dumbledore in any way. McGonagall didn't reply, picking up her pace. 2 minutes later, they stood before a row of cubbies, craning their necks to peer upward. I think it's the 14th one, Wilson said uncertainly, waving his wand. A neat stack of parchments floated down. McGonagall caught the top sheet and exhaled in relief. Fawkes, take this. She handed the parchment to the golden claw on his shoulder. Deliver it to Albus. The phoenix ruffled, feathers igniting into flame. Wilson yelped in shock and stumbled backward. In an instant, the fire, parchment, and phoenix vanished. McGonagall strode toward the door. Professor McGonagall, where are you going? The wizard called, hurrying after her. I'm returning to Hogwarts to resume duty, Wilson, she said. If anyone asks, just say you don't know. In the Forbidden Forest by the tunnel, Dumbledore, Snape, Flitwick, and Sprout stood perfectly still, like 4 statues. Suddenly, firelight illuminated their faces. Dumbledore grabbed the parchment from Fawkes' claw and began reading. Well, Albus? Sprout asked anxiously. Stunning spell, armor charm, cutting charm. Dumbledore's eyes scanned quickly as he whispered, Apparition near Hogwarts. Apparition manifested. Little Hangleton. Do we go there immediately? Flitwick squeaked. Dumbledore instead looked at Snape. The potions master touched his left arm and nodded gravely. Voldemort has likely regained his full strength. This will be a very dangerous rescue mission, Dumbledore said bluntly. Sprout and Flitwick gasped and trembled. Flitwick, you come with me. Pomona, return to the castle and maintain order. Ensure every student stays in bed. Severus, do what you must. Snape's face was grave. Sprout looked worried as they turned back toward the castle. Dumbledore placed a hand on Flitwick's small shoulder. Flitwick, can we? Dumbledore said quickly. No problem. Leave it to me. Flitwick replied firmly. Then we go. Target Little Hangleton, Dumbledore said, gripping his wand. In the next instant, they vanished with a spinning motion. Seizing the brief moment Voldemort hesitated, Derek turned to Harry. Gringotts Vault 632, New York. Remember, Harry, if there's a chance, tell Dumbledore. Before he could finish, the Cruciatus curse struck again, agony consuming him. He didn't know where he was. All resistance and endurance felt pointless. He screamed, a sharp, piercing sound unlike anything he had ever emitted. Then it stopped. In a daze, he felt someone lean slightly toward him, face to face. Slowly, he realized he was staring directly into those merciless red eyes. Perhaps Dumbledore and your filthy Muggle-born family never taught you obedience, Greengrass. Voldemort's eyes blazed with fury. My goodwill is limited. Goodwill? You dare speak of goodwill? Derek's voice was weak, but mocking. You don't need magic for me to read your mind. What you really care about is Ethan's inheritance. That's why you recruited me, to get it without lifting a finger. I'm the sole heir. If I die, you'd have to storm Gringotts yourself in New York. That's why you indulge my requests and patiently listen to my endless blather and sarcasm. And the moment I pledge to you, the death sentence aligns with it, timing it for 3 years from when you get your hands on the inheritance. Right, Tom Riddle? You're courting death, Greengrass, Voldemort roared. Yes, I am, Derek shot back fearlessly. Kill me, Tom Riddle. You can take nothing from me except my life. And you will eventually be defeated by Albus Dumbledore and Harry Potter. Thank you for the high praise, Derek. A calm voice came from outside the circle. But I believe from now on, no one will lose their life. Chapter 97. Avada Kedavra, Voldemort's narrow pupils widened in shock as he peered through the shifting gaps in the crowd. He drew in a sharp breath. Dumbledore! The name struck like a thunderclap. The circle of Death Eaters instantly descended into chaos. Those with their backs to Dumbledore lacked the courage to turn or draw their wands. Panic gripped them, and they bolted toward Voldemort's rear. In mere seconds, the battlefield shifted. Derek curled at Voldemort's feet. Voldemort and Dumbledore stood face to face. Harry remained bound to the tombstone, and the Death Eaters cowered behind their master, watching the silver-bearded elder with wide eyes. Dumbledore advanced slowly, wand in hand. The gentle smile was gone, replaced by solemnity and barely contained fury. Behind his glasses, his eyes no longer sparkled with amusement. Every wrinkle on his aged face radiated authority, and a palpable aura of power seemed to boil the air around him. Your choices are astonishing, Tom, Dumbledore said calmly. I expected more reason from you. You miscalculated, Dumbledore, Voldemort sneered. I used Harry Potter's blood to return to life. This boy is no longer your sharpest weapon. Dumbledore's step faltered for less than a second, then continued forward, as if he barely noticed the words. Tom, there are far worse things in this world than death. In fact, your greatest failure is your inability to grasp that. There is nothing worse than death, Dumbledore, Voldemort said coldly. I have walked further along the path of immortality than anyone, and you can only rot in the grave, clinging to love. You are gravely mistaken. In the next instant, Derek and Harry issued a joint, futile warning. Voldemort's wand shot upward, slicing through the air with a sharp series of blasts, sending stone fragments flying. But Dumbledore's figure vanished like a mirage, reappearing at Voldemort's side. He took a measured step forward, wand sweeping softly. The dust kicked up from the ground solidified into 2 statues. One hovered before Dumbledore, chest blocking a green curse. The other surged toward Voldemort, forcing him from his position. Tom, you never realized that some forces surpass magic by hundreds of times, Dumbledore continued. I warned you long ago that you are tragically ignorant in certain matters and have walked the wrong path. Then what will you duel me with? Voldemort shouted, firing a deadly curse at the approaching statue, shattering its head. A useless twig? Or have you abandoned magic, planning to lecture me on love like you do with mudbloods? I am ashamed, as a teacher, that I cannot pass on the most precious spirit to my students, Dumbledore said, still calm. But I must admit, the only thing I truly want now is your life. Do not think you can take me, Dumbledore. Voldemort shot a green beam. Is there anything more effective than transfiguration? Or is it because I hold 2 of your students that you hesitate to give your all? The green light skimmed the statue's chest. Dumbledore's wand pointed forward, a golden-red blaze erupting into a roaring lion that lunged at Voldemort. Simultaneously, the wand twirled in Dumbledore's hand, and Derek, still limp on the ground, was lifted by an invisible force, flying toward Dumbledore. What seemed like an attack was actually a rescue. Voldemort reacted instantly. His wand flicked, breaking the invisible bonds. From the void, a glowing green stream surged, forming a giant serpent, head raised to strike the lion, venom glinting along its fangs. Voldemort's left hand pressed downward, intending to snatch Derek and toss him to his minions. Boom! The golden-red lion shattered prematurely, flames scattering. The serpent writhed in agony, and amid the fiery chaos, slender fire whips raced along the ground, coiling up Voldemort's legs, threatening to strangle him. Red eyes met blue in the air. Voldemort seemed to read Dumbledore's intent. You think I am saving him, but I intend to end you here. This duel tested both magical skill and strategic cunning, and Dumbledore's mastery was evident. The pale fingers that had touched Derek's shoulder retracted quickly, adjusting the fire whip's trajectory just enough to slow them. Seizing the brief opening, Voldemort's wand transformed the fire into another venomous serpent, which hissed aggressively as it slithered down his body, facing Dumbledore. Boom, boom, boom. As Voldemort transformed the fire, the initial statue suddenly exploded. The stones seemed to reject one another, triggering a chain reaction. In moments, rubble became dust, and a gentle wind miraculously swirled, blanketing Voldemort in yellow-gray powder, blocking his vision, severing his link to Derek. A small figure emerged from the wind. Fleur appeared beside Derek, seizing his arm, and vanished into the air, reappearing meters away from the battlefield. This was Dumbledore and Fleur's plan. Dumbledore drew all attention, creating space, while Fleur rescued Derek or Harry. Offense and rescue intertwined, death, reality, and illusion blending. Crucially, Voldemort remained hesitant to harm Derek directly, a perfect opportunity. What would a hostage be without danger? Thank you, Professor, Derek said weakly, gratitude evident in his voice. Even with Dumbledore's cover, not every wizard could rescue someone under Voldemort's nose. One misstep, and Avada Kedavra would have greeted them. It's nothing, Fleur's sharp voice trembled slightly. It's our duty. You're safe now, child. As Fleur carried out the rescue, Dumbledore vanished, reappearing beside the tombstone. He raised a shield to block the Death Eater's frantic spells, wand quivering slightly, cutting all ropes. With his left hand, he lifted Harry, pivoted on his toes, ready to lead him out of the encirclement. Chapter 98, Recuperation. Elizabeth felt increasingly anxious and uneasy as he spoke so openly, and finally she had no choice but to reply. She stammered, explaining that since the period he had just mentioned, her feelings had undergone a great change. Now she was willing to accept his sincere affection with joy and gratitude. Don't open your eyes yet. Guess what I'm reading? You're only reading one line. How could I possibly guess? Derek shook his head with his eyes closed. There are so many Elizabeths. Maybe she's just a minor character? Oh, right. Here's a hint. This Elizabeth is the main character. I'll read a bit more. Hermione flipped the page with a flourish, her voice soft yet melodious as she continued. His answer brought her a joy she had never felt before, and he poured out his feelings to her with boundless earnestness and passion. If Elizabeth could just raise her eyes and look into his, she would see how radiant he looked with delight. Though she dared not meet his face, she listened to every word, hearing how deeply he valued her, and the more she listened, the more precious his feelings seemed to her. Can you guess now? Can I open my eyes? Derek asked. No. If you open them, you'll see the cover, Hermione said, placing her hand firmly over his eyes. Keeping them closed helps you focus. All right, let me analyze. Derek held her hand over his eyes and spoke slowly. This is a passage about romantic love. The heroine, Elizabeth, after a big shift in feelings, accepts the gentleman's affection. A big shift from dislike to fondness? Darcy and Elizabeth? Pride and Prejudice? I knew you'd get it, Hermione said, delighted. I'll read it to you tonight. Now let's eat. Hermione withdrew her hand and Derek opened his eyes. With the curtain gone, the midday sunlight streamed through the window, burning his eyes. He squinted repeatedly before finally seeing Hermione sitting on the edge of the bed, smiling brightly at him. So you had me keep my eyes closed just to play your reading and guessing game? Derek adjusted the pillow behind his back and shrugged helplessly. And you're reading Pride and Prejudice? I think it's fun, Hermione said cheerfully, looking at him. Or would you prefer something more adventurous? Sherlock Holmes? My parents can send it in a couple of days. I can read a passage and you guess the case. Sure, either is fine, Derek said, taking the large plate from Hermione. Actually, you could use one of the magical library books. It would be more convenient. True, the library is full of magic books. Very convenient, Hermione said pointedly, holding her plate. But life shouldn't be only magic, right? Derek didn't reply, focusing on the sumptuous lunch she had brought. The atmosphere grew quieter. Hermione moved closer, setting her plate on the bedside table, her gaze fixed on Derek, hesitating as if she wanted to speak. Derek knew what she was thinking but didn't want to discuss it. Instead, he asked, How were your morning classes? Did you take good notes? After I leave the hospital, I'll need to catch up. No problem at all. I can go over everything from the start. Hermione's hand rested on his knee. Derek, actually, I wanted to say... She paused. What? Derek asked knowingly. That you still have us, Hermione said, taking a deep breath, her eyes locking with his, as if to convey all her feelings. You're a role model supported by the Hufflepuff students, the son of Mr. and Mrs. Greengrass, and my boyfriend, especially to me. I want to be a listener, to share your pain and sorrow, to make things a little easier. Life isn't just magic. You have family, friends, me, joy, and so many beautiful things. All of it is still here. I understand. Thank you, Hermione, Derek said gently. Thank you for everything you've done for me. Having mustered the courage to confess so much, Hermione blushed with shyness. Once Derek responded, she hurriedly picked up her plate again. I'm glad you understand. How's the steak today? Tastes as good as always, Derek replied, glancing at his companion on the opposite bed and lightly nudging her with his shin. By the way, Hermione, did you bring food for Harry? Hermione slid off the bed, her face turning red. Sorry, Harry. You were asleep when I came. Did we wake you? No, I just happened to wake up, Harry mumbled, yawning. Madame Pomfrey's draught of dreamless sleep was a bit strong, I think. Do you want mine? I haven't touched it yet, Hermione said, hesitating at the foot of Derek's bed, torn between staying with her boyfriend or taking care of her friend. I can eat in the Great Hall instead. No, thanks. Dobby came last night. He said he'd deliver meals for me, Harry said weakly. What about Ron? Ron will come tonight. He needed the afternoon to finish Professor Snape's essay. Hermione pulled over a wooden chair, sitting a little apart from Derek, nervously suggesting, Don't you want some bread? I also brought milk. No, thanks. You eat first. Harry pulled back the blanket and shuffled toward the infirmary, putting on his slippers. Harry stayed in the washroom for 15 minutes, clearly avoiding disturbing them. Hermione, embarrassed and uneasy, took a few bites of her food before leaving quickly. I'm off to class. Say goodbye to Harry for me, she said, trying to sound natural. I'll come back this afternoon to read to you. Derek heard someone whispering near his ear, but he couldn't understand a word. He had no idea where he was, what had happened to him, or even what he had been doing before ending up here. All he knew was that his entire body ached as if someone had hammered him from head to toe. Is he all right, madam? The familiar voice asked again. He should be waking soon. I'll go prepare the potion. The footsteps gradually faded. Derek slowly opened his eyes. He was lying in a bed beneath a hospital ceiling, white curtains on either side. His left hand was held gently by a soft hand. When he turned his head, he saw Hermione sitting at his bedside, a towel in hand, wiping sweat from his forehead. Seeing him awake, her grip tightened. Derek! Hermione's eyes were bloodshot, her face haggard under the dim light of the bedside lamp, her hair a mess, worse than the hardest days of third year. How do you feel? Derek's memories flooded back. Moody, the graveyard, Voldemort's resurrection, Ethan, Dumbledore, and Flitwick's rescue, Avada Kedavra. He had really survived, even after the curse was aimed at him. I'm back? His throat hurt badly, and he had to lower his voice hoarse. Yes, you're back. You're safe now, Hermione said, her voice trembling. You're in the hospital. Derek managed a weak smile, though he didn't feel happy at all, or maybe he simply couldn't. You look terrible. How long have I been out? 3 full days. Hermione's voice was equally hoarse. Still uncomfortable? Hang on. Madame Pomfrey is preparing a potion. So you've been caring for me these 3 days? Derek whispered. Go rest. Find a bed and sleep. No, you need company now, Hermione insisted stubbornly. Do you want some water? Derek didn't have the energy to argue. He nodded, and Hermione took a water jug from the bedside, pouring a cup of warm water, feeding it to him spoon by spoon. So, everyone's all right? Derek asked, hearing glass clinking in the distance. Professor Flitwick has minor injuries. Harry's in the hospital, too. Hermione pointed beyond the curtain, and Professor Dumbledore is fine. That's good, Derek exhaled. That's good. Whoosh! The curtain was pulled aside, and Madame Pomfrey placed a large iron tray on the bedside table, approaching him to check his forehead. Your whole body aches, doesn't it? She asked. Yes. It's the after effects of the Cruciatus curse, but it won't last, Madame Pomfrey said grimly. Any dizziness? A little. Sleep as much as you can these next few days. I'll prepare a mild combination of elixir of life and soothing potion for you. She arranged the bottles on the tray. Any other discomfort? Seems nothing else. Good, she relaxed slightly. Most of your superficial injuries, including the wound on your waist, are fine with a small dose of restorative potion. The burn on your right hand isn't serious either. Just change the dressing daily. Your magical aura is a bit chaotic. Burn? Derek moved his right arm, feeling a hard bandage wrapped around it. Madam, I'm sorry, he interrupted, raising his voice. Cough. My right hand is burned? Yes. When you arrived, the skin was torn and scorched, almost cooked. Don't worry, this little injury won't defeat me. She held a thin-necked potion bottle to his lips. Here, drink this first. Derek pushed the bottle aside, attempting to sit up. Hermione hurried to support him, but Madame Pomfrey pressed him back. You need medicine and rest. No one can harm you here. No, no, Derek gasped, clarity suddenly returning to his mind as he remembered something about the burn. One more question before I take it. My wand? Hermione froze, and Madame Pomfrey paused mid-motion. My wand, Hermione. It should have been returned by Professor Flitwick after I passed out. Hermione met his gaze, tears welling in her eyes. My wand, Hermione, Derek repeated. Through her tears, Hermione opened the drawer of the bedside table and handed him a stick. The ebony was completely charred. The wand had swollen in size, covered in fine cracks. Through some gaps, blackened unicorn tail hair could be seen inside. Derek was too stunned to think, a hollow numbness flooding his mind. I'm so sorry, Derek. Hermione's tears fell onto the sheet. Professor Dumbledore said it used its life to protect you. When the curse came, it blazed in your hand, sending the Avada Kedavra off course. I understand. Thank you. Thank you both, Derek said hollowly. Now, I'll take the medicine. It's fine. Go on to class. Derek gave a genuine smile. No need to worry about us. Cheer up, all right? Hermione hugged him tightly, then slung her bag over her shoulder and left. As the hospital wing doors closed softly, Derek leaned back against the headboard and let out a faint sigh. This was his 6th day back at Hogwarts, still confined to the hospital, and his 3rd day awake. The events of the graveyard already felt like some savage, terrifying nightmare racing into the distance. His memories from 6 days ago were nothing but fragments. Too many horrors had crowded into his mind at once, forcing it to cast off pieces so that only the most vital remained. At the same time, it seemed he had been forgotten there. Neither Dumbledore nor a single Auror from the Ministry had sought him out for statements. Only Professor Sprout visited daily, chatting lightly about coursework. Whatever their intentions, Derek was grateful. He needed solitude, steady rest, and time to mend his strength. For that reason, he turned away all visitors but Hermione. He had no desire to recount what had happened, to reveal his vulnerabilities, or to waste effort weaving some seamless tale for the curious. In short, he wanted silence. Hermione came whenever she could. doing everything possible to make him laugh, to ease the shadows from his heart. But wounds of the spirit heal slowly. Worse than the agony of the Cruciatus curse, worse even than nearly being struck down by the killing curse, were the twin blows of Legilimency's violation and the loss of his wand. The first felt like being hurled bare into an endless winter storm, the second like losing an organ. Ollivander had been right. Wizard and wand were bound together, and for one such as him, whose ebony wand carried deep lineage, the loss was devastating. Once, he believed his power rested entirely within himself. Now, stripped of his wand, he felt fatally diminished, as though a vital piece of his magic had been carved away. He had lost a loyal companion forever. At times, waking in the night, Derek almost laughed bitterly at himself. He had conquered the fear of death, yet here he was, mourning endlessly over a secret still hidden and a carved stick of wood. Was he still the Derek Grador who once prided himself on reason and calm? As for Ethan Grador, Derek felt little. He had been ensnared by yet another Death Eater. What of it? Since third year he had crossed paths with Wormtail, Barty Crouch, Snape, and that entire circle in the graveyard. Blood or not, Ethan was a stranger to him, just another shadow of a dead man lingering on his life. Who was he really? What was his aim? And what exactly lay buried in that inheritance? Dobby has come to bring Harry Potter his lunch, piped a shrill voice at the foot of his bed. Derek lowered his gaze to see a house elf, tea-cozy hat, child's shorts, mismatched socks, and a huge tray balanced in his hands, laden with plates heaped full. "Hello, Dobby. Harry's in the washroom right now. I'll call him." Derek shook off his thoughts, raising his voice slightly. "Harry! Your little friend's here with lunch." 2 minutes later, Harry shuffled out with a towel around his neck. "Thanks. Hermione left? Dobby, hello." "And wait, all this is for me." Harry gaped at the feast. "Yes, Harry Potter," Dobby said eagerly. "You are ill, so Dobby thought you should eat much more." "Eat much more?" Harry muttered in disbelief. "This could feed Hagrid." Dobby brought a little of everything from the kitchen, since Dobby does not know what Harry Potter loves most. The elf's great green eyes shone. Steak, peppered chicken, roast mushrooms, apple pie, onion soup. This is wonderful. Thank you, Dobby." Harry saw the desperate hope on the elf's face and gave in. "But maybe less at dinner, all right?" "As Harry Potter wishes. Serving him is Dobby's honor." The elf beamed, then bowed slightly to Derek. "And does the esteemed sir require Dobby's service as well?" "No, thank you. I'm already being looked after," Derek replied. "Very well. Dobby is always ready to serve Harry Potter and his friends." The elf's ears drooped a little as he added, "But Dobby must return now. Dinner preparations are starting." "So early?" Harry asked in surprise. "No house elf loves rest, sir, and Professor Dumbledore even pays Dobby wages." Pride swelled his tiny chest. "Dobby must work hard to prove worthy of the headmaster's trust." "That's brilliant," Harry said warmly. "Is there anything I can do for you?" Freedom itself is already happiness, and Hogwarts is the finest place in the world. Tears brimmed in the elf's eyes. "Dobby must go. Goodbye, Harry Potter." "Goodbye, sir." Waving frantically, he hurried from the hospital wing, clearly anxious to return to the kitchens. "A bit unusual, isn't he?" Harry said around a mouthful of bread. "I only realized this term that Dobby's not like other house elves at all." "Hermione's mentioned him. Definitely not the same as the rest of them," Derek said, casually flipping open the copy of Pride and Prejudice Hermione had left. "It's obvious he's very fond of you." Harry gave a wry smile. "To be honest, sometimes he's too fond, so much that it causes trouble. Back in second year, he got my arm bones vanished, and before that, I nearly got expelled because of the Ministry's warning. Still, I'm grateful to him. Without his help during the second task." He snapped his mouth shut, clearly realizing he had said too much. Derek felt Harry's eyes on him but didn't look up, calmly reading the book in his hands. For a while, the ward was filled only with the sounds of chewing and pages turning. Several minutes later, Harry let out a long breath. "Derek, I'm sorry." The room was bright with sunlight reflected off the marble floor, the summer breeze rattling the window behind Derek. The sounds of eating and reading had stopped. "What for?" Derek finally raised his head. "For the mistakes I've made. I've made a lot of them." "What's done is done. We're both still here. That's enough." Derek's brows knit slightly as he thought of that damned Marauders map. "Forget it. Finish your food. No, when you were unconscious, Professor Dumbledore questioned me about everything. Harry swallowed hard. I realized then I hadn't been honest with you. I ignored your warnings, and in the graveyard, I couldn't help you. I really am sorry. Don't let the graveyard weigh you down, Derek said, skipping over the first 2 points. You were bound hand and foot. You couldn't move. If Voldemort had decided to torture you first, I'd have been nothing but a spectator against the gravestone. There's nothing for you to feel guilty about. Besides, if Dumbledore hadn't arrived, we'd both be dead anyway. The order wouldn't have mattered. The point is, we're alive. Dumbledore said the same. But I'm not satisfied with myself. Harry slammed his plate on the bedside table with a clatter. That night, the moment we were dragged to the graveyard, my scar started burning, agonizingly, worse than ever. He traced the lightning mark with his fingers. I'm not making excuses. I just wish I could have been stronger, instead of clutching my head and groaning like a child. You just didn't get the chance. You've always had the upper hand against Voldemort, Derek said evenly. Don't forget, you thwarted him in both first and second year. But this year, he won. He came back. Harry's fists tightened until his knuckles whitened. If I'd given up that bit of pride and told you where the gillyweed came from, Barty Crouch Jr. might have been caught sooner. If I hadn't handed over the map, you could have escaped the forest. If in the graveyard I'd shouted, drawn Voldemort's attention, maybe you wouldn't have suffered so much. Stop torturing yourself with survivor's guilt, all right? The fact is, no one died. We both made it out alive. Derek cut him off, irritation slipping into his tone. Enough. Think of the victories. Turn those dark feelings into resolve for the future. That's how you fight him. I'm afraid I'll only let you down. Harry's voice was heavy. First year, I had luck. Second, Fawkes helped. Last year, you and Hermione caught on to Pettigrew. This year, if you hadn't signaled Dumbledore, we'd both still be in that graveyard. I've never had special skills or power. The only reason I've stood before Voldemort again and again is, he stopped. Derek knew what Harry hadn't said, that everything Harry had came from Lily Potter's sacrifice. Derek didn't know how to console him. He himself was mired in his own low tide, but he chose to give Harry some measure of confidence, even if Harry wouldn't believe it now. Listen, it may sound ridiculous to you, but you were born to be Voldemort's bane, Harry Potter, Derek said. You're the boy who lived. There's a power in you stronger than Voldemort, one he'll never understand. Harry gave the faintest shake of his head, then stiffly nodded, as though realizing rejection wasn't fitting after an apology. Thanks for saying that. And about your wand, I'm sorry. It's all right. Everything will be all right, Derek said, though it was hard to keep his voice steady. It'll be difficult to find another wand so attuned, one that would lay down its life for me. But I will find one, my destined wand, carrying no mark but mine. You will, Harry said quietly. Thanks. Silence fell again, much like it had for the past 3 days, whenever it was just the two of them. Silence, each absorbed in his own thoughts, with only occasional small talk. But after that exchange of confessions, it seemed they'd drawn some strength from each other, enough to go a little deeper. This time, Harry broke the quiet. You haven't asked, and I wasn't sure if I should say. Maybe Professor Dumbledore should be the one to tell you. But do you want to know what happened after you collapsed that night? Is it important? I don't know, Harry said honestly. But since it involves the one who wants you dead, I think you deserve to know. Derek hesitated, then nodded. He couldn't bury his head in the sand forever. Go on. Your wand burned with light. It bent the killing curse away. Then you collapsed. Professor Flitwick was terrified. He caught you before you hit the ground. The Death Eaters took the chance to break past the wards and struck him. Harry's voice was flat. That's when Fawkes appeared, bringing Dumbledore and me to your side. Dumbledore examined your... What about Voldemort? How did he react? Derek asked, recalling that expression on Voldemort's face.